I do not love humans. I love what devours them. Hello, this is Ghost, and welcome to another scary video. This story was originally made by NoSleep, titled My Weirdest Story from the Institution. Enjoy. For the last 3 years, I have worked at the Behavioral Institution for adults with severe mental retardation and histories of violence. It's a difficult population to work with, at least in psychiatric facilities. Patients can sometimes be reasoned with, talked down, and can sometimes transition back into normal society with the right therapy and/or medication. In my line of work, you're basically keeping a bunch of giant, angry toddlers from killing themselves 24/7. Most of them will never learn to talk, reason, or live on their own. Best case scenario, we are able to use cookies and Blue's Clues as positive reinforcement to reduce the frequency of full-on violent meltdowns and self-injury. I think we all do it because we love it. It certainly doesn't pay well enough otherwise. I'd be lying if I said that a big part of it isn't how hilarious they are sometimes. Maybe that sounds bad, but I honestly think some of them are much smarter than they let on, and just like to troll people. Like one time, a staff member asked one of the individuals, "Do you remember my name?" "Of course," he drooled, then wrote shakily on a torn up piece of paper about the size of a fortune cookie's fortune. After a few minutes of intense writing that threatened to break the pencil, he handed her the paper with a smile. "Ruin," is all that it said. We had a pretty good laugh about that one. She ended up dying in a car crash a week later. Ominous, as it was in retrospect. It was still pretty funny. Anyway, for what it's worth, there's one particular case that no one laughs at. In Sector G, there is a serious, wispy old man with brain damage named Clyde. In my time there, he has never been violent. In fact, he is suspiciously quiet and relaxed, which I think compounds the sense of dread that most staff members feel around him. His behavior program lists all kinds of bullshit, like arson and marijuana dependence. But the only precursor we're supposed to watch out for is when, and this is verbatim from his behavioral program, his eyes get wide and he starts whispering, "Satan." Certainly, not the kind of violence and self-injury that our organization was built to control, but disconcerting nonetheless. My first day on the job, one of the older ladies I worked with told me, "You best not let him do that chill. That's the evil trying to come out." I was instructed to engage him in an incompatible activity and notify a supervisor immediately when he exhibited that particular behavior. Even though after a month I was pretty desensitized to cleaning up shit, being bitten, and being called the nastiest and the most nonsensical things. I must say, it unsettled me more than it should have. I gave him a paper and some crayons and notified my supervisor. A few minutes later, I checked on his progress, just to see if he had drawn anything or not. He had written 2 words. Knock knock. Well, what could be more incompatible with creepy whispering than knock knock jokes, I thought. So I wrote back, "Who's there?" "Satan," he whispered, louder than before. I should have known, I thought. I rolled my eyes and spoon-fed him some oatmeal. There was one particular individual there who specifically insisted on giving me the most trouble there those first few months. A younger guy named Ryan with severe autism, intermittent explosive disorder, and schizophrenia, who insisted that I had chopped up his parents and put them in his food. Logically, he refused to eat when I was in the same room with him, and instead decided to dedicate his mealtime to charging at me and trying to bite my dick off. One day, while he was arguing with one of the other high-functioning verbal guys about which one of them had the best chance of touching Tila Tequila's jubes, Clyde started going with his Satan spiel. In this particular instance, I decided that de-escalating the imminent brawl was a higher priority, and informed everybody that if I heard Tila Tequila's name one more time, I was going to turn the TV off entirely. But the whole show is about her. How are we supposed to watch a show if you can't hear people say her name? I don't know, Jimmy, but you better figure it out, I said. You shut up and die, queer faggot, Ryan shouted, and then started slowly crawling towards me, bawling his eyes out. Mission accomplished, I thought. At least they aren't arguing with each other anymore. Satan, 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 Satan! By this point, Clyde's whispering had reached a fevered pitch, so I hurriedly slid a piece of paper and some crayons in front of him in an attempt to differentially reinforce incompatible behavior, DRI, as in the behavioral construct, not to be confused with the 80s punk metal band Dirty Rotten Imbeciles, and was about to notify the supervisor when he stopped talking and instantly started writing. Satisfied, I returned to the daily peace process. It wasn't until half an hour later that things had calmed down enough to do a head count, and we realized that we were one person short. I didn't start panicking until we had thoroughly checked the bathrooms and closets on our level, but it was quickly apparent that Clyde was gone. All that was left of him was a piece of paper covered in huge, elaborately crossed-hatched letters, spelling out, "Daddy, come find me. Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." Well, we're fucked, said Dennis, my coworker, on the floor with me that day. I'll call the AWOL. In our institution, AWOLs are a pretty big deal, since most of our individuals are court-ordered to be there for rape, murder, or molestation that they were incapable of understanding as wrong. If one of them is able to successfully leave the premises for more than 24 hours, someone is likely to get charged with criminal neglect or worse. However, a cursory inspection by the supervisors found that none of the doors or windows were unlocked or broken, and rolling back security cameras showed no one but staff entering or leaving the buildings. The only logical conclusion was that Clyde was hiding somewhere in the group area. But the group area was mostly a wide open space, and there was really nowhere to hide. Once the supervisors were sure that he was still in the building, they went off to search through other group and common areas, leaving us to search our area, Sector G, while still keeping an eye on our group of 8. Well, 7 now, troublemakers. In an attempt to avoid Ryan brewing up one of his terrible tantrums, we were able to enlist his begrudging help on the condition that I stopped feeding him his parents, an easy enough concession in my part. About 20 minutes into the search, I started to hear little whispers of Satan. That's kinda creepy, I thought, but dared not to say it out loud, lest I lost the source. I couldn't be sure where it was coming from, but it sounded like it was coming from the maintenance closet. Since only staff have the key, we hadn't even bothered looking in there. I decided it was worth a shot. Sure enough, the whispering got louder when I opened it. Satan, Satan, Satan. I motioned for Dennis to come with me. because I was not venturing into the dark catacombs alone. In the words of my old boss, I don't do maintenance. To be honest, the closet wasn't that dark, or even that big. It was just cluttered and creepy as hell. Ryan took one look inside, whimpered, and went back to coloring. About 20 feet back, behind about a dozen broken mops and ripped up carpets covered in dry blood and vomit, there was a humanoid shadow moving slowly. Relieved, I was about to radio that we had found the target's 20, when I noticed that it was holding something cat-sized in its teeth. Whatever it was breathing slowly and dripping. "I'm right here, Daddy," the shadow whispered breathily. "Clyde, you best come out here this instant, boy," Dennis said. He was a braver man than me, that's for sure, and his authoritarian nature suited the job better than my own laissez-faire tendency to just do the bare minimum of damage control. In this instance, however, it was my good cop tactics that brought him out. "Come on, Clyde. That was a funny joke. Now come watch Tila Tequila," I said. He started laughing. It wasn't a demented or stereotypical evil laugh, but it was still a chillingly abnormal sound. Even for the institution. It kind of sounded like he was in the late stages of being tickled to death. He was giggling loudly, and I could hear the fear rising in his voice as his laughter grew louder and more desperate against his will. Finally, his giggles became full belly laughs, and his mouth opened wide, releasing the bloody brown rabbit to the tile floor with a sickening schlick. "Clyde, where'd you get that rabbit?" He stopped laughing, just long enough to look me in the eye, smile knowingly, and say exactly what I knew he was going to say. "Satan." At that, he charged out, picking the rabbit up between his teeth by its now external throat, then dashing out of the closet on all fours. An overwhelmingly stink hit my nose, like a mixture of durian fruit, ancient jockstraps, and rotting onions. Dennis bent over and started vomiting uncontrollably, and from very far away, I could hear screaming, which is not uncommon in the institution. But suddenly, I could hear it growing louder and louder, closer and closer. I half expected to turn and see Ryan charging at me, but when I turned, everyone was sitting quietly, fear in their eyes. Ryan and Jimmy, the only verbal guys in the group, had tears running down their face. One was rocking on the floor, muttering, good boy," and the rest were staring straight ahead, as if they were trying to teleport somewhere else. Suddenly, I was seemingly transported to the other side of the room, and a shot at love had magically changed to Jersey Shore. There was no rabbit, no blood or chunky emesis on the floor, and my watch read an hour later. Clyde was smiling with empty, complacent eyes, playing on the floor with someone else's blocks. Everyone else was still looking ahead, pale and fearful, covered in sweat and tears. Even Dennis looked like he had just recovered from a bad flu. The supervisor walked in a minute later. "Oh wow," she said. "You found him. Where was he? And why did no one radio?" Well, we just found him actually, in the maintenance closet, believe it or not. But everything is fine. Totally under control, ma'am." Okay, she said, suspiciously. Well, I'm glad we can call off the search. Anyway, just need you to fill out some incident forms, and we should be good to go. Anything I can do for you guys? I need a cigarette, Dennis said, not waiting for a reply to run out the door with a coffin nail in his mouth, and a cup of water. The supervisor squinted her eyes. So, nothing out of the unusual happened here, right? No, ma'am. That's good. The last time he disappeared like this, he caught one of the staff members on fire. No idea how he did it. Time before that, someone got bleach in their eyes. Like, we don't even have bleach here. Best to keep a closer eye on him in the future, yes? Yes, ma'am. For the rest of my time with that group, Ryan didn't mess with me nearly as much as he used to. Jimmy shied away from Tila Tequila, and Dennis absolutely refused to speak about what had happened. I have no idea where the rabbit came from or where it went, but I suspect it had something to do with black magic. I don't think it takes a genius to summon the forces of darkness, and just maybe saying Satan a whole bunch is all it takes. I doubt anyone else has tried it as much as Clyde. Hello again, this is Ghost. If you enjoyed the video, please press the like and subscribe button. I now have a new Instagram, so please check that out. I really appreciate your support. If you have any suggestions for future videos, leave a comment below, as I read all of my comments. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a safe night.